Evening all. We are waiting for this wonderful session for a long time, and the day has come. Now I request our West Godavari branch, Sikasa Chairman.
Good evening, dear members, and today's eminent speaker, Mr. Bhanushekhar Garu. We are actually looking for this topic, as Mr. Brahmananda Rao said, from long time, because there are a lot of changes in the new Finance Act, and in this facialist regime and this pandemic situation, it is very need of the hour to have a topic like this. And the today's speaker is a very eminent person who is having in-depth knowledge regarding these things, these faceless regimes and all the income tax recent amendments. So I request all the members to enrich our knowledge by getting our doubts clear with the today's speaker. Thank you. Now I request our Rajmahendra Secretary Brahmananda Rao to take the proceedings.
Yeah, it's always a joy, and it will always give goosebumps while introducing a speaker like Bhanushekhar sir. At first, I thank Bhanushekhar sir for giving his time immediately after asking him. In practice, as a member, as a partner in CRBS Associates LLP, he is into practice, and a partner in CRBS and Associates LLP Chartered Accountant, Chennai since 1994. He contributed articles on direct taxes and international taxation to several tax journals, including Consolidated Commercial Digest, published by the publishers of Income Tax Reports, Taxman, Tax Referencer, and the Income Tax Review, published by the Chamber of Tax Consultants, Mumbai. He had argued in a number of landmark cases before various benches of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal across the country, which have resulted in establishing precedents for many common contemporary issues. Chief among such cases are Fort India Limited relating to claim of deduction for warranty expenses, Scasoft Limited before the special bench on parity between numerator and denominator in computing deduction under Section 10A, SSA Limited relating to taxability of ESOP, Vijaya Productions relating to the accrual of capital gains, Apollo Hospitals Enterprise Limited relating to taxability of capital gains earned in India on sale of shares of Sri Lankan company. He has authored following books: Handbook on Assessment Procedure under Income Tax Act 1961, Search Assessment under the Income Tax Act. He is formerly a visiting faculty at the ICSI, and the Loyola Institute of Business Administration on Direct Taxes. Currently, he is a special invitee in Direct Tax Committee of the ICA and Continuing Professional Education Committee of the ICI. Presently, he is co-opted member of the Direct Tax and International Committee of the SARs of ICI. With this brief introduction, actually there are many other case laws which Sir has argued, but just to give him a lot of proper time, just a little bit giving only the brief of the introduction of Bhanushekhar sir. With this brief introduction, now I hand over the session to Bhanushekhar sir. Sir, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Office bearers of the branches of the SARC of ICI, respected members, and other friends. It's indeed a privilege to be again here with all of you. It's not the first time that I have been here with you. I'm indeed happy that I can be here again with you, but probably missing the physical presence, but though I can be able to do it virtually. And on a topic like reassessments. When the topic was being introduced, they said we are awaiting a discussion on this topic. Friends, I must first of all share with you that I am equally anxious to share my thoughts on this topic, because this seems to be a topic which is now very hot. In fact, if you take the total number of seminars that we are being called for to address, about one half of the people want one of the topics to be reassessed. That seems to be the amount of interest that the topic has, generated in the recent past, and probably for various reasons. Some of them the right reasons, some of them the wrong reasons, and all of it. Now, friends, you will recall that the Finance Act 2021 made substantial amendments to the provisions relating to reopening of assessments. There were two things that the Finance Minister spoke about in her budget speech. One, the Finance Minister announced that they are reducing the time limit for reopening assessments to 3 years. And two, she also mentioned that even in cases where there is going to be a search or a requisition, reassessment proceedings will be resorted to. Now, if it were just that much, then I don't think we needed a conference of the magnitude that the conferences of the magnitude that are being organized across the country. The issues seem to be far more complex and far-reaching than what meets the eye. In fact, or rather I should say, what met the ear when we heard the finance minister make her budget presentation. Now, what I will probably do is to first discuss some of the provisions relating to reopening of assessment as they stood prior to the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021. And then go into the changes that are made by the Finance Act 2021 and contrast and compare the two to understand which of the old provisions will still apply, how the new provisions in certain cases will supersede the old provisions, and how certain conditions that were not there in the old provisions will apply under the new provisions, and how certain conditions which were existent in the old provisions will not apply under the new law. So what we will do is to first have a brief discussion on the provisions relating to reassessment as they stood prior to the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021. Friends, I am making myself clear at the cost of repetition that what I am presently going to discuss is with regard to the provisions as the Finance Minister in her speech said that the time limit for reopening is reduced to 3 years, and further that in search and requisition cases, reopening will be resorted to and the new procedure will take over even in case of search and requisition cases. If that was all it was, I think life would have been very easy, but that is not what all it is. It is far more complicated, complex, and tricky than what I was saying meets the eye at first blush, or rather we could say what meets the ear, because what the finance minister spoke was completely different from what is written in black and white. So friends, what I will presently do is to start with the Finance Act or the provisions relating to reassessment as they stood prior to the amendment, and thereafter discuss about the provisions relating to the amendment and how the amended provisions will affect the existing provisions, whether we are going to be better off, worse off, etc. We will discuss and debate as we proceed. But to enable us to discuss this, I will start at the cost of repetition by stating that I will first discuss the provisions as they stood prior to the amendments made by the Finance Act 2021. The provisions as they stood prior to the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021. Now, prior to the Finance Act 2021 coming into force, the provisions relating to reopening of assessment, of course, we will also be discussing about the aspect relating to the issuance of notice under the old provisions of Section 148, even post 31/3/2021. In fact, the Secretary of the Rajamahendravaram branch has specifically requested me to discuss with that aspect relating to reassessment. Sir, I don't think we really need to share the screen. This should be fine, because whatever is in, that's a fairly elaborate material containing all the aspects relating to reopening. And that has been circulated, and I'm sure it will be circulated to the participants as well. I would rather that we now concentrate on understanding the provisions, and we could debate among ourselves or discuss about among ourselves as to how the provisions are applicable, as they stood and as they stand now. So we will also discuss, as I said, about the impact of the provisions of section notice under 148 being issued post the 31/3/2021 deadline, based on the extension granted on the basis of the powers that are vested to extend the time frame in the light of the COVID situation that is prevailing across the country. In fact, we also have a very interesting decision. We have several interesting decisions in that regard, and a very, very interesting final order of in writ petition of the Chhattisgarh High Court, which still remains to be an unreported decision, the Chhattisgarh High Court. So we will discuss that as well. But before we proceed there, Let us first have a look at the provisions as they stood prior to the amendment. Now, prior to the amendment, there were effectively 4 categories of time limits for completing an assessment. Actually, I should say, insofar as reopening is concerned, 3 categories of 3 time limits. But then I'm saying 4 very consciously. The 3 time limits that are stipulated or that were contemplated in the context of reopening was up to 4 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, and then in certain cases beyond 4 years and up to 6 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, and certain other cases beyond even 6 years and up to 16 years from the end of the relevant assessment. These were the 3 segments that were provided for in relation to reopening. Now, friends, you will also recall that there were provisions relating to search assessment which were contemplated by 153A onwards. And there was a provision to make an assessment or frame an assessment under 153A in respect of the 6 assessment years relevant to the previous years immediately preceding the previous year of search. The 7th preceding previous year or assessment year could be done by reopening even under the old provision. That would not have been a problem provided the condition is satisfied. And then you will also see that they contemplated completing an assessment for the 2 earlier years, that is the 8th and the 9th year as well. I'm talking of preceding years, by reopening the assessment by issuance of 153A in certain cases. Now, why I am having to merge the provision of 153A as they stood and 147 read with 150, 150, 151, 149, etc. is because they have now under the new law got merged. They have under the new law got merged into one procedure. Right? They have got merged into one procedure. So that's why we are forced to also discuss about the provision of 153A, because 153A also becomes inoperative with effect from a particular date. Now, coming back, so there were different categories of time limits that were available for completing an assessment after reopening the same by issuance of notice either under section 148 or by issuance of notice under 153A, as the case may be. Now, what was the procedure that was contemplated for reopening an assessment? What was the procedure that was contemplated for reopening an assessment under the erstwhile provision? The erstwhile provision said the assessing officer must have reason to believe that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. The assessing officer must have reason to believe that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment, was the language. And thereafter it went on to say that he must record his reasons in writing and thereafter proceed to issue a notice under 148, and wherever required must have obtained the sanction as required under section 151 of the Act from a designated higher authority. So we had a situation where we talked about recording of reasons, the reason being reason to believe that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment, and further that approvals were required before issuance of notice in certain cases. Now, would the reasons recorded be given to me? These were subject matters of discussion and debate before various appellate fora, and ultimately the law came to be settled by the Supreme Court in a case called GK and Drive Shafts. Now, friends, all the citations that I am referring to, all the case laws that I am referring to are already circulated to the secretary of the Maharaja Mahendravaram branch, and I presume he would circulate it to the others. In any case, if you do require copies thereof, I'll be glad to share it with any of you. Right? So we had a situation where the issue was whether the reasons will be made available to the assessor. Substantial judicial discussions were going on this, and this came to be settled by the decision of Supreme Court in GK and Drive Shafts. The Supreme Court in GK and Driveshaft laid down the procedure like this. They said where a reopening is made and a notice is issued under section 148, the assessee should first comply with the notice by filing a return in response to the notice. He should first file a return in response to the notice. And after filing a return in response to the notice, which is a mandate or the obligation that is cast on him, the assessee can request the assessing officer for reasons to be given, which were recorded in writing before the issuance of the notice. He can ask for the reasons. On reasons being asked for by the assessing officer, the Supreme Court said the assessing officer shall furnish a copy of the reasons to the assessor. So first, notice comes, you comply with the notice by filing a return. If you want, you ask for the reasons. If you ask for the reasons, the assessing officer is duty bound to give you the reasons. Now, once he gives you the reason, you have a right to file your objections to the reasons if you so wish. Again, that's an option available to you. You may choose to or may not choose to file the objections. And once you file the objections, to dispose of it to complete the reassessment. So he is under an obligation to pass a speaking order. He is under an obligation to pass a speaking order disposing of the objections. So this was the judge-made law or the procedure as was laid down by the Supreme Court in GK and Driveshaft. Now there have been substantial modifications, but before we go there, now as I said, the reopening could be done up to 4 years, beyond 4 years, etc., etc. Now, what was the requirements of law? One, they said there must be reason to believe that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. I do not want to spend too much of time on when income is said to be escaping assessment, because that's a very wide definition. Even where income is assessed too low a rate, one can say that income has escaped assessment. That is provided for in the provisions relating to reopening. But then the recording of reasons and the belief is mandatory. Whether there must be sufficiency of reasons cannot be gone into, but that there must be reasons, and those reasons must have a live link with the information that has been collated by the assessing officer is but necessary. Now, one of the very common questions that comes under the old law, as it stood prior to the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021, for such of those who may have joined in a little late, I repeat, I am discussing the law as it stood prior to the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021 for the time being. Number of questions arose. Can I reopen on the basis of an audit objection? Can I reopen based on information that came from third party, etc.? Now, I think these are peripheral questions. These are peripheral questions. The main issue that needs to be addressed under the old law, we will discuss its applicability under the new law as well. The main issue that needs to be discussed under the old law is whether a reopening can be made when what can be said to be on the basis of a change of opinion. Now, before we go further into the discussion of this aspect, we realize that if there is an opinion formed, only then the question of a change of opinion arises. If no opinion has been formed, the question of change of opinion does not arise. So, if an assessment has not been framed, then one cannot urge that there has been a change of opinion because no opinion has at all been formed. And in this context, one will also notice that an intimation under 143(1) is not an assessment, but a mere intimation. And that is settled by the decision of Supreme Court, Rajesh stockbrokers case. That is settled by the decision of Supreme Court in Rajesh Javeri stockbrokers case. So now the question of what is a change of opinion? In fact, I started off with saying that there must be there should not be rather a change of opinion. And I was also discussing about whether audit, objection, etc. can be used in reopening an assessment. Whether audit, objection, etc. can be used in reopening an assessment. Now, in discussing this, there are two crucial decisions of the Supreme Court. One is a decision of the Supreme Court in a case called PVS BDs. And the other is a decision of the Supreme Court in a case called Lucas TVS. Now, if you read these two decisions of the Supreme Court, in Lucas TVS, the Supreme Court said no reopening can be made on the basis of an audit objection. However, in PVS BDs, they upheld the reopening made on the basis of an audit objection. Now, when somebody reads these two decisions at first blush, it appears as though these decisions run in conflict with each other. But if one were to read these decisions carefully, one will appreciate that they don't run in conflict to each other. Now, in Lucas TVS, the issue was that of a legal point where an interpretation was taken by the audit, which was different from the interpretation of the assessing office. The Supreme Court struck down the reopening based on the audit objection on the basic principle that since this is only a different viewpoint taken by the audit party, that will amount to a change of opinion. But in PVS BDs, a factual error was pointed out by the audit. And when this factual error was pointed out, and when the assessing officer noticed that the factual error was in fact existing, he reopened the assessment. The Supreme Court said this cannot amount to a change of opinion because a factual error is a factual error. It is not an interpretation issue at all. So therefore, one can conclude that these two decisions do not run in conflict with each other. We also have an all-important decision of the Supreme Court arising from the full bench of the Delhi High Court in a case called Kelvinator of India. Now, if one were to see the decision of the full bench of the Delhi High Court in Kelvinator of India, there are two very important aspects that are discussed. One, what is the effect of an assessment which is reopened on the basis of a change of opinion? Two, is there any presumption in law with regard to the aspect of an opinion being formed? Friends, I already mentioned, if the original assessment has not been framed, or if there is only an intimation, then the question of change of opinion does not arise. The question of change of opinion does not arise. Right? Now, having said this, the full bench of the Delhi High Court in Kelvinator of India, they said no reopening is possible on the basis of change of opinion. Now, that leads us to a very crucial question. What if the reopening is sought to be done within 4 years from the end of the relevant assessment year? Even if a reopening is sought to be done within 4 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, the point or the issue of change of opinion is still relevant, and reopening cannot be done on the basis of a change of opinion, a fresh opinion being formed by the assessing officer or by his successor. If you were to see paragraph 4 of the decision of the Delhi High Court, the full bench of the Delhi High Court in Kelvinator of India, you will notice that the reopening in that case was within 4 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. And despite that, the Delhi High Court held that the reopening is bad in law since it is based on a change of opinion. And this aspect came to be affirmed by the Supreme Court in Kelvinator of India. All the citations are there in the paper that has been circulated among the branch office bearers. Now, the second aspect was, is there any presumption in law that an opinion has been formed if the assessment has already been framed, whether any presumption is there. Now, if one were to see the last but one paragraph of the decision of the Delhi High Court, the full bench of the Delhi High Court and Culminator of India, they will notice that they refer to section 114 within brackets small e of the Indian Evidence Act and says that a presumption arises that an officer or government authority has done his act or his job properly. This issue came to be discussed by a larger full bench of the Delhi High Court in a case called Usha International, where they said that the presumption does not arise in each and every case. But in case the SSC has been queried or has been asked a question during the assessment and reply has been furnished, then the presumption is definitely arising. Otherwise, there is no presumption. So now the law is that the provisions relating to reopening under the old law cannot be made based on a change of opinion. And B, there is a presumption that the officer has done his duty, provided a question has been raised and has been replied in the course of assessment. Right? And this concept of change of opinion is applicable even if the assessment is to be reopened within 4 years from the end of the 11th assessment year. I am still talking about the law as it stood prior to the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021. Right. Now, friends, the next aspect under the law as it stood prior to the amendments made was that the Supreme Court, as I mentioned earlier, has said that reasons can be asked for by the assessing officer, by the SSC, and the assessing officer is under an obligation to furnish the reasons. The SSC may thereafter file his objections, and the assessing officer shall dispose of the objections by a speaking order. Now, what is the effect of all this? What if I ask for the reasons, but reasons are not given to me by the assessing officer? You have several decisions, including the decision of the Bombay High Court in Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited, the decision of the Bombay High Court in Formento Research, etc., where the High Courts and where an SLP has been dismissed by the Supreme Court against the decision of the Karnataka High Court, where they say that if reasons are not given to the SSC despite a request made by the SSC, please remember, you must request for the reasons. If you don't ask for, the assessing officer is under no obligation to give you the reason. If you ask for it and he does not give it, then they said the reassessment itself is invalid. The reassessment itself is invalid. Now, the second aspect is, what if you get the reasons, you file the objections, but the officer fails to dispose it off by a speaking order? What is the effect thereof? Now, you have two conflicting decisions of the High Courts here. You have the decision of the various High Courts where they say failure to pass a speaking order will not invalidate the proceedings, but the proceedings are liable to be set aside because it is a procedural defect. You also have decisions which say that the assessment is invalid. I would be tempted to agree that it does not invalidate the proceedings, but only is a procedural defect which can be rectified by the assessing officer when the assessment is set aside by the appellate authorities or by a High Court in exercise of its writ jurisdiction. The law as it stood, as I said, or as we discussed earlier, also provided for reopening in certain cases beyond 4 years and up to 6 years. But if a reopening has to be done beyond 4 years and up to 6 years, it can be done where an original assessment has been completed under 143(3), only if there is a failure on the part of the SSC to make a full and true disclosure. So if there is no original assessment made under 143, there can be done up to 6 years from that relevant assessment year in the normal course, subject of course to recording reasons, etc. Reason to believe, all that much. But if the original assessment is completed under 143.3, please remember there is an additional condition that there must be a failure on the part of the SC to make a full and true disclosure. There must have been a failure on the part of the SC to make a full and true disclosure. Right? Now, this aspect of what is failure on the part of the SC to make a full and true disclosure, I will discuss. There are two very important decisions. One is the decision of Supreme Court in a case called NDTV, New Delhi Television, and the other is the decision of Supreme Court which affirms the Delhi High Court in a case called Honda CL. A case called Honda CL, the Delhi High Court affirmed by Supreme Court, and in the New Delhi Television of the Supreme Court reversing the Delhi High Court. These are two very important and crucial decisions that we may have to discuss. Now, before we proceed to discuss that, some of the procedural aspects. As I said, there must be a failure on the part of the SC to make a full and true disclosure. Now, who must demonstrate this? The demonstration should be made by the revenue authorities. There is no onus on me to show that there is no failure on my part. It is for the assessing officer to show that there is a failure on my part. I can rebut that. But the primary onus or burden is cast on the revenue. In fact, there are decisions of the Madras High Court, the Delhi High Court, the Gujarat High Court, and all of these, where they say that the reasons for reopening itself must mention that there is a failure on the part of the SC to make a full and true disclosure. And not only that, the reason that is recorded must state what is the failure on the part of the SSC to make a full and true disclosure. What is that failure must also be found in the reasons recorded in writing itself. Please remember, friends, that the starting point for reopening an assessment itself is that there must be reason to believe and that those reasons must be recorded in writing. For such of those who have joined late, I will reiterate or restate that I am still discussing the law as it prior to the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021. I shall come to the amendments made by the Finance Act 2021 and the impact thereof, because understanding the old provisions is imperative to understand what are the impact of the changes made by the Finance Act 2021. What is the impact of the changes made by the Finance Act 2021? Now, I said we need to discuss two important case laws in this subject. One is the decision of the Supreme Court affirming the decision of the Delhi High Court in a case called Honda CL Power Products Limited. Friends, all these citations are before you in the paper circulated. So you need not make a note of it at all. It is all available. Honda CL Power Products Limited. Now, please bear with me because I'm going to share some factual data relating to the case with you, because it is unavoidable that I share these factual details with you. The assessment year in question in Honda CL was assessment year 2000-2001. Assessment year 2000-2001. Return was filed on 30th November 2001. On 30th November 2000, sorry, 2000, not 2001, 30th November 2000. The Finance Bill 2001, the Finance Bill 2001, presented in the Parliament on 28th February 2001, contemplated inserting a new section 14A with retrospective effect. Contemplating inserting a new section 14A with retrospective effect. Now, the assessment in this case was completed in March 2003. Please note that assessment year was 2000-2001. Return was filed before the budget presentation, before the bill became act, everything. But the assessment was completed after the bill became an act. Also remember that 14A was a provision which was inserted retrospectively. Now the assessing officer sought to reopen the assessment beyond 4 years from the end of the 11th assessment year. Beyond 4 years from the end of the 11th assessment. One of the defenses taken by the SSE before the Delhi High Court and before the Supreme Court was that when I filed the return, section 14A was not at all in existence. Now the assessing officer is seeking to reopen because 14A disallowance has not been made. 14A disallowance has not been made. Now the defense taken by SC was when I filed the return, 14A was not at all in contemplation because I filed the return in November 2000. Only in February 2001, even 14A was ever contemplated and legislated only in May 2001. Now the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court negated this claim of the SC. They said making a full and true disclosure does not stop with the return. You have been assessed to tax post the amendment being made. At that time, you could have made the disclosure. The assessee tried to defend it, saying, I was not asked. They said, whether they have been asked or not is not the question. Is there a failure on your part to make a full and true disclosure? You have not stated that you have exempt income in the course of assessment, that you have exempt income on which 14A disallowance is possible. And they upheld the reopening in this case. The decision of Supreme Court affirming the Delhi High Court in a case called Honda CL. Now, this is one decision which is very good. The other decision is the decision of the Supreme Court in a case called NDTV, National New Delhi Television Limited. Now, before I proceed to discuss New Delhi Television, just one quick point I will make. Please remember that an assessment can be reopened up to 16 years from the end of the assessment year. 16 years from the end of the 11th assessment year. If there is income in relation to an asset located outside India, including financial interest in any entity. Income in relation to an asset located outside India. Then reopening can go up to 16 years also from the end of the 11th assessment. This was the law as it stood prior to the Finance Act 2021. Now, the issue before the Supreme Court was multifold in NDTV's case. First, the assessment order in this case is a detailed order. Can one say that because it is a detailed order, the powers of the AO to reopen are affected? The Supreme Court said no, it is not affected so long as there is no case of change of opinion. A. B. The second question was whether any finding that is made in the course of an assessment for a subsequent year can be stated to give rise to a belief that income escaped in an earlier year. They said if it has relevance to an earlier year, then yes, even information that is obtained in the course of a subsequent assessment can be a basis for reopening the assessment. And three, most important, with regard to a full and true disclosure, they said in the facts of this case, there is no failure on the part of the SC to make a full and true disclosure. And they went on to observe like this. They said it is the duty of the SSE to disclose all primary facts. It is the duty of the SSE to disclose all primary facts. It is not required to disclose secondary facts. The SSE, they said, is not required to give any assistance to the assessing officer except the disclosure of primary facts. once the primary facts are disclosed, the inferences that are drawn have to be drawn by the assessing officer. If he has not drawn any adverse inference, then you cannot allege that there is a failure on the part of the SC to make a full undertaking. The fourth and most crucial point was that the department tried to uphold or say that the assessment needs to be, reassessment needs to be upheld, since they are now relying on the second proviso to section 148. The second proviso to section 148 provides for an extended period of 16 years, where it is in relation, where the income is in relation to an asset that is located outside India. The Supreme Court said, no, in your reasons recorded, you have not stated so. Therefore, you cannot now justify your reopening on that basis. So now, friends, it is very important. Remember, the Supreme Court is laying down a very important principle that if your reasons do not justify the reopening, you cannot under any circumstances justify the reopening. You cannot improve these reasons subsequently. Now, these are some of the basic aspects relating to reopening. Of course, there is a quantum relating to escapement of income where it is beyond 4 years. They say the minimum amount of income escaping assessment should be 1 lakh, provided the original assessment was completed under 143(3), etc. We also have certain authorities who are required to give their sanction before the issuance of notice. Now, please note that most of these are even applicable under the new law. That's why I am discussing this under the old law and the decisions rendered under the old law. Now, the law provided in certain cases that sanctions should be obtained earlier from the Joint Commissioner and in certain cases from the Commissioner or Principal Commissioner. Now, there have been instances where the approval was required from Joint Commissioner, but the AOs obtained the approval from the Commissioner. And they said, after all, we have obtained it from even higher an authority, what is wrong? The court said, no, if it has to be obtained from a Joint Commissioner, only a Joint Commissioner can give the approval. The mere fact that somebody is higher to the Joint Commissioner cannot justify the reopening. If that is so, then tomorrow a board member will give approval. He is higher than Commissioner also. So that cannot be the case. 2. I said, for reopening an assessment, there has to be reason to believe that income has escaped assessment, which means that there should be application of mind on the part of the assessing officer that there is escapement of income, because he has to record his reasons, and those reasons have to be recorded in writing. Those reasons have to be recorded in writing. So there has to be definitive application of mind on the part of the assessing officer. Now the next question. There is the sanction that is required from a higher authority in certain cases. Now what happens is there is a format in which the sanction is sought for. And if one sees the format, it talks about various things. You can obtain all this from the assessing officer itself. In fact, we apply and take it from the assessing officer only. If he does not give it under the normal provisions, we apply under the Right to Information Act and obtain it from him. He is duty bound to give this to you. There is a correspondence where they say these are the reasons I am proposing to reopen. Kindly give me the sanction. Put up for sanction. Now, many cases we have seen that the approving authority has said satisfied or yes, I am satisfied. Now, there are various decisions, including decisions of the Supreme Court, which I have given in the background material that I have circulated, where the courts have held that it is not possible to uphold a sanction which does not refer to the application of mind on the part of the approving or sanctioning authority. So mere mention of I am satisfied satisfied, yes, I am satisfied, they say is not enough. You must say as an approving authority why you are satisfied. Only then they say it is a valid approval that has been granted. Only then it is a valid approval that has been granted. I'll just discuss one or two more aspects and then move to the new law, because I said the new law is also substantially based on the existing law itself, the law as it stood prior to the amendment. And therefore, many of the principles, barring a few, are still applicable under the new law. Now, I said the reopening has to be done. The reopening has to be done on the basis of reasons recorded. Now, as an assessing officer, I record a particular reason, say A, reason A, for reopening your assessment. Can I go to reason B and add that also in the course of the reopened proceedings? You have explanation 3 to section 147, which provides that the assessing officer can travel beyond the reasons also. He can travel beyond the reasons also. Right? So, that he can travel beyond the reasons is settled by explanation 3. But then a debate arises, what if the reason fails? I have recorded reason A for reopening your assessment. In the course of the reopened proceeding, I find that reason A is not valid reason. But in the meantime, I have found another escapement, which is B. Can I only add B? No. What the high courts have said, the Bombay High Court, the Rajasthan High Court, the Delhi High Court, and all of them have said, or Madras High Court, all of them have held that if the reason fails, the reopening will fail. You cannot, if at least one of the reasons survive, the reopening is justified. You can travel beyond the reasons also. But if all the reasons fail, the reopening will fail, is how most of the high courts have taken a view. However, there is a contrary decision. The decision of the Karnataka High Court in a case called N. Govindaraju versus ITO, where the Karnataka High Court holds that even if the main reason fails, the assessing officers can still proceed to complete the reassessment based on reasons which are not recorded at all. That means even if the reason fails, the reopening is valid. Now, friends, with all due respect, I am tempted to agree with the view taken by the Bombay High Court, the Madras High Court, the Rajasthan High Court, etc., where they say that if the reason fails, reopening fails. Because see, otherwise, what can happen? It can lead to abuse of power. I will simply record some reason. The reason itself will be vague, not valid. The minute I do that, I get the power to reopen your assessment. Right? I get the power to reopen an assessment, and then I will drop that and do all other things. Which means I am doing a fishing and roving inquiry to see if I can make any additions in the office. I don't think that is an appropriate thing to do, or that should be the correct view in the matter. I don't think that should be the correct view in the matter, with all due respect to the Karnataka High Court on the subject. Right? So these are some of the aspects. Now I have some queries that are coming to me. I will probably try to, complete whatever is in my mind and then take the questions, because I'm not sure whether I will be answering those questions even in the course of my presentation. But I shall certainly take up all the questions. You are free to send your questions at any point in time. I shall take up these questions even before I conclude the session. Okay. Now, reopening, whether it can be made on the basis of retrospective amendments. See, what happened in this case was a very interesting thing. These retrospective amendments are based on various decisions of courts, etc. A very interesting case, a decision of the Madras High Court in a case called Bayer Shoes. A decision of the Madras High Court in a case called Bayer Shoes. Now there, what happened was the Supreme Court took a particular view of the matter. And based on this decision of Supreme Court, the assessing officer sought to reopen the assessment. Because according to him, the Supreme Court lays down the law for all time. And therefore, he could reopen on the basis of a decision of Supreme Court. The Madras High Court struck it down, saying that it amounts to a change of opinion. And that therefore the reopening is not possible. So even if there is a retrospective amendment, etc., if it is amounting to a change of opinion, that is not possible. Now, what is the effect of a reopened assessment? Can the assessing officer travel and give you benefits in a reopened assessment? Can he give you certain benefits in a reopened assessment? Now, the first or basic point that I will address is whether he can give you a benefit in relation to the escaped income. Now, there is no debate at all. He can give you benefits in relation to the reopened assessment, where it is in relation to the escaped income. For example, if an assessing officer finds that you have carried on a business outside the books which you not at all revealed to the department, can I claim the expenses in relation to that income? The answer is yes, because so long as it is related to the escaped income, there is no problem. You have a direct decision of Supreme Court in a case called Chettinad Corporation, where the Supreme Court has held that is permissible. But then a slight deviation from this question. Is what will be the impact? What will be the impact in case the reopening is sought to be made and the assessee wants a benefit which he has not claimed in the assessment in his return at all? Can he do that? It is not related to the escaped income. Now you have a decision of the Supreme Court in a case called Sun Engineering Works, where they said reopening can only be for the benefit of the revenue. It cannot be for the benefit of the assessee. So reading this decision, one may presume that it cannot be done. But that's not how the law has to be understood. You have another decision of the Supreme Court, in fact, a larger bench of the Supreme Court, in a case called V. Jagan Mohan Rao, where the Supreme Court held, larger bench of the Supreme Court held, that when an assessment is reopened, the original assessment gets completely effaced. Which means that a fresh assessment has to be framed, and in that fresh assessment, if any benefit is found available or found necessary to be given, that has to be given, even if it is not in relation to the escaped income. In fact, this has been beautifully analyzed in an unreported decision. This decision I have not cited in the background material. It is an unreported decision. So if anybody wants to make note of this decision, please do. The Karnataka State Cooperative Apex Bank Limited. The Karnataka State Cooperative Apex Bank Limited versus DCIT. Right? The Karnataka State Cooperative Apex Bank Limited versus DCIT. It is a decision rendered on 6th July 2021. On 6th July 2021 by the Karnataka High Court, saying that even if a benefit is claimed for the first time in reopened proceedings, subject to the conditions being satisfied, the benefit of the reduction should be given, even if it is not in relation to the escaped income. Right? Now, these are the provisions that I thought we could discuss in relation to the old law. Now, remember, friends, that the old law also had Section 153A and 153C, which contemplated of issuance of notice under 153A and completing an assessment for the 6 years preceding the previous year of search, or as the case may be, the 6 years preceding the year in which the material is transferred to the officer having jurisdiction over the other person to whom the material belongs. So these 6 years can be issued, notice can be issued under 153A beyond these years also they can travel, but provided for the 7th preceding year they issue a notice under 148. For the 7th and 8th and 9th year they can issue notice under 153A. But for that years in the aggregate, those years in the aggregate, the income that is escaping assessment should be 50 lakhs or more in the aggregate. 50 lakhs or more for those 2 years in the aggregate. Please note very carefully because these are very crucial even under the new law. Now I will come to the new law. The amendments made by the Finance Act 2021. Now, what is the procedure that is contemplated by the amendments made by the Finance Act 2021? One, the assessing officer should have information. Please note carefully, information which suggests that income chargeable to taxes escaped assessment. It is no longer reason to believe. Information which suggests. What is required is only suggested. He must have information which suggests that income has escaped assessment. Two, he can, if he so deems it necessary, conduct an inquiry. But to conduct an inquiry, he is required to take the prior approval of the designated authority. And whether or not he chooses to conduct the inquiry, the assessing officer should, with the prior approval of the designated authority, give an opportunity of being heard to the assessee by issuing a show cause notice, giving not less than 7 days and up to 30 days to file a reply. Of course, this time limit can be extended by the AO on application. So he must give you a show cause notice based on the information which he is having that he proposes to reopen your assessment. Even for issuance of this show cause notice, he is supposed to take an approval. Then he must consider the reply that is filed by the assessee, if any, and thereafter decide based on material available on record, and if there is a reply from the assessee, also on the basis of a reply, he must pass an order with the prior approval of the designated authority as to whether it is a fit case or not for the issuance of a notice under 148. And this order must be passed within 1 month from the end of the month in which the reply is received by him. So it's a very strict procedure. It is not even as loose as it was earlier. So now the procedure is, under the new law, is that if I have reason to suggest that, or information to suggest that income chargeable tax has escaped assessment, I must first go to the higher authority. If I want to do an inquiry, I must take his approval. If I don't want to do an inquiry, I can do away with the inquiry. But I must go to the designated authority, get an approval, give the assessee a show cause notice, give him time to file a reply, then consider the reply, with the approval of the designated authority, pass a speaking order, attach the speaking order along with the notice under 148. So now there is no doubt, no judgment law. The law itself makes it clear that all this must be there. This is the basic structure relating to the new procedure that is to be followed for reopening an assessment. Now, what are the time frames that are contemplated? Now, you will recollect that the finance minister said we are reducing the time frame to 3 years. We are reducing the time frame to 3 years. Okay. Now, in a normal case, the time frame for reopening an assessment is 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, where income chargeable tax is escaped assessment, subject to satisfying all the conditions, and for which he needs to take the prior approval of the designated authority. Designated authority is the principal commissioner, the principal director, or the director of income tax. But the law also provides that he can travel beyond 3 years and up to 10 years from the end of the relevant assessment. When can he do so? When the assessing officer has in his possession books of account or other documents or evidence that reveal that income chargeable to tax is represented in the form of asset which has escaped assessment and the amount is likely to exceed or is likely to amount to rupees 50 lakhs or more for that year. So if I as an assessing officer want to travel beyond 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, I can travel up to 10 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, but provided I have books of account or other documents in my possession or evidence in my possession which reveal that income chargeable to tax is represented in the form of assets where it is likely to be rupees 50 lakhs or more. The escapement is likely to be rupees 50 lakhs or more. Now we have to read this very, very carefully. First, remember that this 50 lakh or more is with reference to each year. Now, if you will recall the old procedure under 153A, which we discussed, you could go up to the 8th and the 9th year. But if you wanted to go up to the 8th or the 9th year, income escaping assessment, there must be 50 lakhs, but that 50 lakhs was in the aggregate. Here, the 50 lakhs or more is for each year. So, if I want to go to year 4, I go to year 4. Income escaping assessment say is 40 lakhs, I can't reopen. I go to year 5, income escaping assessment is 60 lakhs, I can't reopen. That way. I have to look at each and every year and see whether it is likely to be rupees 50 lakhs or more. If it is, then I get a right to reopen, otherwise I don't get a right. This is point number 1. Point number 2, it says the AO has in his possession books of account or other documents or evidence. Look at the language. It says he must have in his possession, which means when I say possession, that means he must be in control of that particular document or information. Of course, questions can arise whether copies of a document can be said to be, enough, etc. I think that should suffice. I would think that should suffice. But be that as it may, one important aspect that has to be borne in mind is that the law in no unclear terms and very categorically requires that the assessing officer must be in possession of books of account or other documents or evidence which reveal that income chargeable to tax represented in the form of asset has escaped assessment. Now, the second important aspect. It says the income should be represented in the form of an asset. So let us assume a case where I as an assessing officer find that you have incurred an unexplained expenditure. You have conducted your daughter's marriage some 6 years back, 5 years back. And in that you have spent some 75 lakhs of unaccounted income. Can I reopen the assessment? The answer is no. Even though it may touch 50 lakh or be more than 50 lakh, I cannot, because the law requires that it should be represented in the form of an asset. Now, nobody can say your daughter-in-law or your son-in-law is an asset. No. Asset means it should be, an asset which is capable of being monetized. Right? So also notice that aspect. Now that brings us to another very important aspect relating to reopening. If you read the law, it says, if any income chargeable tax escaped assessment, it may subject to the provision of 148, 153, assess or reassess the income, etc. And then it goes on to say that for the purpose of this section and for the purpose of 148A, 148A, friends, is a procedure that I just discussed. Giving an opportunity, making an inquiry, taking approvals, etc. For making the inquiry, etc. The sanction is contemplated by 151. We'll come back to that. But remember that explanation 1 says that for the purpose of this section and 148A, information in the possession of the assessing officer which suggests that income chargeable tax escaped assessment means A. Any information flagged in the case of the assessee for the relevant assessment year in accordance with the risk management strategy formulated by the board from time to time. So for the sake of convenience, we will say information flagged by the board based on risk management strategy. B, any final objection raised by the CAG, the Comptroller and Auditor General, to the effect that the assessment of the relevant assessment year has not been made in accordance with the provisions of this Act. So, information flagged by the board is one, and two, a final objection of the CAG. These are the only two circumstances that they contact. Now, is the board going to, in each and every case, say in the case of so and so, in the case of Bhanu Shekhar, this is risk assessment? No. They are going to formulate a risk management strategy and say these can constitute information. For example, they may say information that is given by the investigation wing of the income tax department is information that based on risk management strategy. Information generated in the course of survey, they can say, is etc. etc. So broad guidelines would be laid down by the board. Unfortunately, we do not know what is that is going to be flagged by the board, because so far nothing has been done. And to a final objection of the CAG. Now, that leads us to a very, very crucial question. There are two principles under the existing provisions or the old provisions of section or the old provisions relating to reopening. One is the principle of change of opinion. How relevant or significant is it under the amended provisions? Two, failure to make a full and true disclosure. Is that relevant? A. As far as change of opinion is concerned, in my personal view, change of opinion is still relevant even under the new law. Failure to make a full and true disclosure, that is no longer relevant at all. Even if there is no failure on the part of the SC to make a full and true disclosure, if the assessment has to be reopened, it can be reopened, but subject of course to satisfying the other conditions in the Act. Okay. So now remember that what is required is a suggestion. Also remember the provisions of 148 make it clear that if there is a search or a survey or a requisition under 132A, then the law provides that the assessing officer shall be deemed to have information which suggests that income chargeable to tax state assessment. What does this mean? Now, in normal cases, you can reopen only if there is information flagged by the board on the basis of the risk management strategy or a final objection of the CAG. But if it is a search or survey case, these two are not required. That is what it means. Even without these two, there is a presumption that there is a escapement of income. There is deemed to be information that suggests that income chargeable to taxes is escaped. The procedure we have already discussed with, but then, as I said, there are certain sanctions that are required. Now, the sanction is mandatory in each and every case. Whether you want to reopen within 3 years, beyond 3 years, in every case, sanction is required, except that if it is beyond 3 years, the sanction is required from the principal commissioner or the principal director general or the chief commissioner or director general, whereas in all other cases, the approval is required by the principal commissioner or the commissioner of income tax or the principal director or the principal or by the director of income tax. Now, up to 3 years. Right? Also remember that if it is a case where there has been a search or a requisition, a search under 132 or a requisition under 132A, the procedure as contemplated in 148A does not have to be applied. That is, he need not give you an opportunity of being heard, etc. before issuance of notice. But in every other case, that procedure also has to be followed. Now, if it is a connected case, that is, if there is a search on A, but they are seeking to reopen the assessment of B, then again the AO must be satisfied and he must take certain prior approvals before issuance of. He must take certain approvals before issuance of. Now, coming to the various other issues. I said that you can go beyond 3 years and up to 10 years, provided the AO has in his possession books of accounts or other documents or evidence which reveal that income chargeable to tax is represented in the form of assets which has escaped assessment and which is likely to amount to rupees 50 lakhs or more. Now, please remember that to reopen an assessment, two conditions are required. Unless it is a search or acquisition case or a survey case, two conditions are required. Two things must be there. One of two things must be there. One, it should be an information flagged by the board based on the risk management strategy of the board. Or two, it should be on the basis of a final audit objection with CAG, the control and audit. It should be based on a final audit objection in the CAG. Now, beyond 3 years, if one has to proceed, it says the assessing officer must have reason or must have information in his possession, must have in his possession books of account, documents or evidence which reveal that income chargeable to tax is represented in the form of asset which has escaped assessment and the amount is equal to or likely to exceed rupees 50 lakhs for that year. What does this mean? Does it mean that even if there is no risk management strategy of the board, does it mean that if it is not based on final audit objection, but I have information in my possession, I can travel beyond 3 years from the end of the assessment year? Just give me a minute, friends. I'm sorry for the break. Now, does this mean that if information is not flagged based on the risk management strategy or there is no audit objection, but I have in my possession books and documents which reveal that there is an escapement of income, right? Can I reopen the assessment? To my mind, the answer should be no. If you want to travel beyond 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, one more condition is there. Apart from the fact that it should either be based on the risk management strategy of the board or be based on a CAG objection, you should also have in your possession books of accounts or other documents or evidence which reveal that income chargeable to taxes is escaped assessment. This is how I would like to, or I would understand this aspect. Now, friends, there are other issues that rise. I'll quickly deal with the other issues, some of the other issues, and then come back. Now, the law provides that under the old law, also under the new law, it says assessment or reassessment in respect of any issue which comes to his notice, subsequently in the course of a reassessment proceedings, whether in the new law, if the reason fails, reopening fails. Now, if one were to read the language, can I hold for a minute, please? So they have promised me that they have only 4 more screws to drill. So we will only be disturbed for a few more minutes, what they have said. Anyway, now please remember that under the old law, explanation 3 to section 147 specifically said that if income chargeable to tax is escaped assessment, and if there is anything beyond the reasons, that can also be subject matter of reopening or can be completed in the reassessed proceeding. Of course, there are decisions predominantly in favor of assessee saying that if reason fails, reopening fails. Now, what happens under the new law? At this point, I will say that I also discussed about the decision of the Karnataka High Court, which is against assessee, but I would personally think the other decisions, namely the decision of Bombay, Delhi, Rajasthan, and Madras High Court, is a better view of the matter to say that if the reason fails, reopening. Right? Now, what happens? Here they say, for the purpose of assessment or reassessment or recomputation under this section, the AO may assess or reassess the income in respect of any issue which has escaped assessment, and such issue comes to his notice subsequently in the course of proceedings under this section, irrespective of the fact the provision of 148 have not been complied with. What does this mean? See, if there is a reason recorded, on that they will give me a notice, so-called notice, they will ask for my objections, I will file my objections, they will pass a speaking order with the approval of the designated authority, and then only issue the notice. But supposing during the reopened proceedings they come across something more, should they again issue a 148A or should they comply with the 148A procedure? The law says no. For that, they don't have to comply with the 148A. Does this mean that they can travel beyond the reasons? Yes, it means that they can travel beyond the reasons. Does it mean that if the reason fails, the reopening is still valid? No. If the reason completely fails, the reopening is invalid in my understanding, even under the amended law. Even under the amended law, the reopening will fail. Of course, this is subject to the debate as to which is the correct view of the matter. My personal view is that if the reopening, if the reason fails, the reopening fails. But even if one reason survives, the reopening will still be valid. Now, the second aspect, the law says information that has been flagged in the case of the SC has to be in accordance with the risk management strategy formulated by the board. Should the information in respect of the SC be forming part of, has to be from the board, or can it be from any other source? Now, please remember, the risk management strategy will be decided by the board. The information which is flagged can be from anybody. It can be from the income tax department, from some other wing of the income tax department, or it can be from some other department itself. It can be from the GST department, it can be from the customs department, it can be from the central board of CBI, it can be from the enforcement directorate, it can be from anybody. Information can come from any person. The risk management strategy should be that of the board. But the information should be relevant and should be connected to the risk management strategy of the board. Friends, what will be the risk management strategy of the board? I am still not aware, because nothing has been formulated so far. Right? Now, the third very crucial aspect is that if you see under the new law, if you want to reopen beyond 3 years, the law says you must have books of account, document, or other evidence that income chargeable to tax is escaped assessment. And it doesn't stop there. It says the books of account, documents, or other evidence must reveal. What does this mean? It's a very important word that is used, must reveal. Now you are talking of 3 different languages. If you see the old law, it talked about reason to believe. It talked about reason to believe. If you talked about the new law, the amended law, the starting points of reopening talk about or use the language. If I can read from the language used exactly, it says that subject to the provisions of so and so, so and so, so and so, he can recompute, etc. And then it goes on to say that he must have information which suggests. It goes on to say he must have information that suggests. But beyond 3 years, it says he must have books of account, documents, or evidence which reveal. What is reveal? Now, 1 is belief, 2 is suggestion, 3 is the word reveal. Now, reveal is even stronger than belief. Suggestion is below belief. It is suggestive. But reveal means it should actually be seen, demonstrably be seen from the books of accounts, documents, or other evidence that there is an escapement of income. It should reveal. Okay. That means it should be palpably seen. that there is an information that income has statuses. That is very necessary beyond 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year under the amended law. It is more than suspicion, it is more than belief. The third thing I already discussed. What about the 50 lakhs? Please remember the 50 lakh limit is per year. Now come to the language. It says the AO has in his possession books of accounts, document or other evidence. What is this books of account, documents or other evidence? Books of account is a defined term, so there is not much of difficulty in understanding that. So it can mean even a digital format books. For example, you give information which is uploaded on the e-portal. That can also be information. So that is in electronic form. You give it to somebody on a pen drive. That can also be information, because it need not be in physical book form. Pen drives are enough. Digital form is enough. Right? But it should be in his possession. That means he must have control over that particular information. It should be in his possession. What is this documents? Now I can give an example, because it's very difficult to define a document. Supposing you have, during the course of proceedings or in the course of whatever has happened, the assessing officer has found an agreement of sale. The agreement of sale value being more than the sale deed value, and what is stated as full value of consideration in your computation memo while computing the income for the year. I would say that the agreement of sale can be said to be, the agreement of sale can be said to be a document or other evidence. Evidence can be in any form. It can be even in the form of a loose sheet. Supposing there is a search or a survey and a loose sheet is found, that can also be evidence. Now the question is whether cash can be evidence. Whether jewelry, valuable articles or things other than cash can be evidence. I would think valuable articles of things can be evidence. Valuable articles of things can be evidence. But cash per se, you don't have to bother, because cash will normally be assessed only in the year in which it is found. So I don't have to reopen an assessment at all. So I don't have to bother about the reopening provisions. I don't have to bother about the reopening procedures. Now, the term evidence, can a sworn statement be construed as evidence? Can a sworn statement be construed as evidence? See, what happens is, they come to my premises, take a statement from me. On that basis, they want to reopen your assets. Can that be taken as evidence? In my view, the sworn statement of one person cannot be construed as evidence to reopen an assessment against another person. It cannot be construed as evidence. It is not books of account, it is not document, it is not evidence. So a mere sworn statement is not enough to travel beyond 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment. Okay. Now, the most important or the most crucial question. I will discuss this and pause for some time. Friends, if you have any queries, you may raise it at this point in time. But this is going to be the most crucial aspect of our discussion. What is the effect of the Taxation Laws Relaxation Act, amendments made by the Relaxation Act pursuant to the COVID situation? Now, pursuant to the COVID situation, please remember that the lawmakers gave the right to issue notifications for extension of time in various cases, in the basis of which they have extended the time for filing returns, etc. etc. In fact, extending the time for filing returns has not happened only on the basis of COVID. More than COVID, Infosys has been, we have to thank Infosys for the extension of time. The new portal is literally not working, or working half the time. Halfway through, I won't say half the time, it is working halfway through. Half of it will work, half of it will not work. God only knows when this will be resolved. the finance minister has called the CEO of Infosys, given him time till August 15th. We are now on August 18th, September 15th. We are now in September 18th, and still the same position is prevailed. The confusion is still there. So they have extended the time again because they have the power to relax. They have been relaxing, thanks to Infosys and the COVID. Now, they also extended the time for completing an assessment in various cases. They also extended the time for completing an assessment in various cases. Now, one of the powers, in exercise of the powers that was conferred, one of the issues that came up in the notification was for completion of an assessment, etc. And two was for the issuance of notice under 148. Now, friends, remember, when does the new provisions relating to 148 come into play? A, on and from 1/4/2021, I am talking without any relaxation, please remember. Assuming Corona had not been there, no relaxation had been there, what would have been the law? On and from 1/4/2021, all notice of reopening should have been compliant with the new scheme of the Act. And in a search case where the search is initiated on or after 1/4/2021, notice should be issued under the new scheme, under 148 only. If the search is initiated prior to 1/4/2021, then the old 153A notice would have been issued, should have been issued on this. Right? Now, as far as search cases is concerned, there is no confusion because in respect of searches initiated on or after 1/4/2021, no notice under 148 has been issued so far, to my knowledge. And I don't think anybody issues notice so fast. Definitely not up to June 2020. Now, what happened as a result of the notification, which is in exercise of the powers that are conferred under the Taxation and Other Laws Relaxation and Amendment of Certain Provisions Act 2020. They relaxed the provisions for issuance of 148 notice, where the time barring was 31/3/2021. Please note very carefully, where the time barring was 31/3/2021, they relaxed it to 36/2021. What did they do? They relaxed the time from 31/3/2021 to 36/2021. Right? Now, that leads to the next aspect. They thereafter issued a clarification number. They issued a clarification, and the notification which has clarified this has said that the time limit which expires on 31st March was extended to 30th April and then to 30th June 2021. They said in the explanation, I'm reading the explanation, please bear with me and note it very carefully. The explanation: for the removal of doubts, it is hereby clarified that for the purposes of issuance of notice under 148 as per time limit under 149 or sanction under 151 under this subclause, the provisions of 148, 149 and 151 of the Income Tax Act, as the case may be, as they stood as on 31st March 2021 before the commencement of the Finance Act 2021 shall apply. So, sanction should be as per 151 under the old law, according to this explanation. The time limit will be under the old law, under 149. Now, what have officers done? To my knowledge, in every single case, the officer has issued a notice under the old provisions of 148 without complying with the conditions that are stipulated in 148A. Now, the Taxation Laws Amendment Relaxation Act said that they can issue a notification relaxing the provisions, the time limits. They can relax the time limit, not the procedure. Friends, please be very clear. They cannot relax the procedure. So to my mind, to say that you can issue a notice by complying with the old 149 and 151 itself is incorrect. They cannot do that. They don't have the powers in my understanding. For that, a statutory amendment is required, a notification will not suffice. Now, what have the officers done? They have recorded their reasons in writing, taken a sanction as per the old 151, issued a notice under the old one, within the old time limit under 149. Old time limit under 149 they can do because the notification permits them to do, and the Taxation Laws Relaxation Act permits the notification. Old 151, whether that can be applied to my mind, no. They should have complied with the new 151, the new sanction that is required. But then officers have gone one step further. They have not complied with the procedure that is contemplated by 148A. What is 148A? 148A says you can, if you want to, if you have information which suggests that there is escapement of income, you can conduct further inquiry, but with the approval of the designated authority. And thereafter, with the approval of the designated authority, issue a show cause notice. And on the basis of the information that is in your possession, and on the basis of the reply to the show cause notice, with the prior approval of the designated, nowhere in the notification, they have said that 148A need not be complied with. What is 148A? 148A says that you must give an opportunity of being heard on the basis of information that suggests that income has escaped assessment, on the basis of the risk management strategy, the board, etc., etc., etc. On that basis, you must give an opportunity to the assessee. You must give an opportunity to the assessee with the prior approval of the designated authority, who is the principal commissioner, or as the case may be, the principal director, etc. And then pass a speaking order, and with the speaking order, you should send me the 148 notice. Nowhere the notification. First of all, I would think the notification, saying the old 151 can be complied with is not correct, because that power is not available by the Relaxation Act. But even assuming that that is correct for a minute, non-compliance with 148A, in my understanding, is fatal to the issuance of the notice. And such notices are bad in law. Several high courts have stayed the proceedings issued on the basis of the notification without compliance of the provisions of 148A. However, there is a decision of the Chhattisgarh High Court in a case called Palak Katuja versus Union of India. It is reported in 130 taxman.com 44, the Chhattisgarh High Court. This citation, I'm afraid, may not be available in the paper that I have circulated. 130 taxman.com 44. Now, the facts of this case are like this. The assessment year is 15-16. The reopening was done on 30/6/2021. That is the extended time available as a result of the notification. Now, the assessee challenged this notice, and if you see at paragraph 5, the court talks about the perusal of various documents and says the question that comes here in this case, that comes for consideration, is whether with the promulgation of the Act on 1st April 2021, where the notice directly issued under 148 is valid, or not a bar of 148A was created by insertion of the section from 1st April 2021 in order to get reference, etc. They proceed. So they have said, or they have stated, that one of the issues that arise is whether non-compliance with 148A in respect of an earlier year under the old law for 15-16 is valid. Now, their conclusion is at paragraph 11, where they say that the pandemic situation, the COVID-19 situation, has led to substantial lockdowns, and that is why the Relaxation Act was formulated. And based on this Relaxation Act, a notification has been issued, and that notification is valid. And therefore, the notice is valid. Now, I am afraid the Chhattisgarh High Court, with all due respect, has not considered one very important aspect. One, whether the board has got the power to relax the provisions of 151. That has not been looked into. B, even assuming they have the power to relax, nowhere does the notification say 148A need not be complied with. So, in my understanding, 148A, that is the procedure that is laid down, that is giving me an opportunity, passing an order, and then issuing the notice, should have been followed. Otherwise, it is fatal. I would submit with all due respect that the Chhattisgarh High Court, in my understanding, has not laid down the correct law, and it requires to be reversed by a larger bench, a division bench of the High Court. This is my personal view. I might be wrong. But I would think that all notices that have been issued without complying with the procedure that is laid down in 148A is bad. Now, friends, here I will pause for a little while. I have a few questions that have been raised, a couple of them. I will answer them. If you have any further questions, of course, with the permission of the organizers, I will take them as well. One, if the return is not processed under 143.1, can notice under 148 be issued? Now, I would personally think the non-processing of a return under 143.1 does not invalidate the issuance of a 148 notice, whether it is under the old law or under the new law. Right? Whether it is under the old law or under the new law, I would think that non-compliance or non-processing of under 143.1 will not invalidate or will not take away my powers as an assessing officer to issue a 148 notice, provided all other conditions are satisfied. Two, can information gathered under 133.6 be used to reopen an assessment subsequently? This is another question. Now, this is a very interesting question. In fact, a very challenging question. It's a very challenging question, I must say. Why? Now, because I have to now look at this in the context of the law as it existed prior to the amendment and the law as it exists post the amendment. Prior to the amendment, there would have been no problem so long as the information that is gathered under 133.6 gives rise to reason to believe that income chargeable to tax is escaped assessment. There is no problem. The reopening would be very much valid. The reopening would be very much valid. But what happens post the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021? Now, post the amendment made by the Finance Act 2021, please remember, I will divide it into segments like this. One, I must have information that suggests that income has escaped assessment. And what is that information? It should be an information that is flagged off based on the risk management strategy of the board. It should be a final audit objection of the CHE. Or two, there should have been a search, a requisition, or a survey, in which case information is deemed to be there. Now, here is a case where information has been gathered under 133.6. Now, the question is, can this be used to reopen? Now, I would think that this answer to this question will depend on what kind of risk management strategy the board is going to formulate. We don't have the answer to this question as yet. But sooner or later, the answer should come. Because if the risk management strategy says information gathered under 133.6 can be information, then yes. But if they don't say so, then the answer is no. But remember that if it is going to be beyond 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year, then the officer should have in his possession books of account, documents, or other evidence. So mere information gathered under 133(6) without books of account, documents, or other evidence in his possession will not suffice. Even if that is part of the risk management strategy of the board. Right? I think I have tried to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Friends, I will pause here. If there are any questions, you may take it. Otherwise, I hand over the proceedings back to the organizers. But before that, two things. One, once again, I must thank the organizers for the opportunity given to me to share my thoughts on the subject, because it has been a great learning for me. It has been a great learning experience for me. And while I thank the organizers, I think I owe a thanks to the participants, because but for them, even the organizers could not have given me an opportunity. So thank you all for the opportunity. I will be very glad to answer any questions in case there are any. And I hand over the proceedings back to the organizers. Thank you very much, friends.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm having one question, sir, which I posted in the chat box. Can the cash deposits made into bank account can be a base for issuing notice under new law?
Sir, can you repeat, sir?
Can the cash deposits made into bank account in the during 2016-17 like that, 15-16, can it be a base for issuing the notice under 148 post to 31st March 2021?
Sir,
without following
under the
148?
old law or under the new law, I would think that cash deposit by itself cannot be a reason to issue a notice.
Yeah, there is some judgment I came across. That's why I got some
judgments apart. Judgments apart, sir. Let's see. First of all, let's look at the first principles. Sir, I go and deposit cash into my bank, sir. Mostly this is because of demonetization that this issue arose. Right? Now, tell me, is depositing cash in any way wrong in this country? No. Depositing cash into bank account is perfectly legal. I do not know how depositing cash into the bank can give you reason to believe that my income has escaped assessment. Now, if you analyze the deposit and say, look, he has deposited 50 lakhs in the bank account, whereas his income shown in the return is only 2 lakhs for every year for the last 10 years. Now, how can he have deposited 50 lakhs, etc.? If they have elaborately discussed, I think that may be a possible basis for issuance of notice. But merely saying that he has, deposited cash, therefore I have reason to believe, I think is simply untenable. That can never be a basis for issuance of notice at all. I'm also in the chat box sharing my phone number and email ID. In case anybody requires, you can always be in touch with me. Right? So I would think, sir, that merely stating that I have deposited cash, therefore income has escaped assessment, the reopening is completely bad, whether under old law, new law, whatever law. Right? That is illegal. That is not law at all.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. Do you remember any other questions? So can we conclude that 148A is the important?
Sir, if 148A has not been complied with in respect of notices issued on or after 1/4, in my understanding, the notice is invalid.
Dear members, any other questions you have, or can we conclude? Now I request our Sikasa brand, Kagni brand Sikasa chairman, Sri VVS Kiran, to give his vote of thanks, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Anand. Yeah, I deem it a real privilege to give my vote of thanks to the wonderful speaker for today, who's also happened to be my guru in 2005. I attended classes with you, sir. And yes, sir. Maybe you might not have recognized me. This is how I am right now. Yeah, I was in Mr. Harish batch along with Harish. I attended with Harish your classes. Yeah, they really helped me, and now here I stand as Sikasa chairman of Rajahmundry branch right now.
Great, sir. Great, sir.
It's a wonderful learning experience from you, sir. The entire session was wonderful. I really thank the chairman of both branches and secretary of both branches and managing committee of both branches for bringing about this event. It's been really lively. Thanks one and all. Thanks all the delegates and the technical people who have helped us to take this session wonderfully. Thanks one and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bhanusekar sir. Once again, I'm grateful to you.
Thank
you
you.
immediately accept our request.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all to all the participants.